Okay, if everybody will accept that, and then I'm already recording on
Okay, Rob.
audio, and if you guys are ready to go, we can
Okay.
start in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Mystical Underground. Thank you for joining us. This is Rob McGregor.
And Trish McGregor.
And our producer and tech magician, John Posey. You can go to the mysticalunderground.com where we make regular blog posts and where you can find out about our books. Among them are Phenomena, Harnessing Your Psychic Abilities, The Secrets of Spirit Communication, Sensing the Future, and Aliens in the Backyard. Our upcoming book is called The Shift, Reports from the Mystical Underground. Trisha's new novel, White Crows, will be coming out this year, and Rob has been slowly releasing the audio edition of Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings.
Our guest today is Darlis, is it Mayes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's an Akashic Records instructor and consultant who facilitates group Akashic record readings for groups such as the Cocreator's Convergence retreat, as well as spiritual retreats around the world. She's also a dowser and transformational spiritual coach. Welcome, Darlis, and sorry
Welcome,
for all
Darlis.
the confusion at the beginning.
Thank you. Thank you. No, it's great to be here.
Okay, my question is simple. What are the Akashic Records?
Yeah, that's pretty a broad question, right?
Right.
So the Akashic Records is all information of all times. So when we are born, the ether starts gathering a record of our information, of our life stream. And so when I teach the Akashic Records to students, I always say it's all information of all time, and it's located in 3 different arenas. It's the main event, so to speak, the main body of records would be held in the ether, where all information of all time is held in sacred community. The Akashic Records is also our personal Akashic Records is stored in our DNA. So every recording of every life stream is recorded in your DNA, and you have access to that information, which is very, very powerful. And there's also an etheric cave where each time you embody, there's a geode or a crystal located in that cave. And when you re-embody, that lights up. You have access to the recording of any place you've ever touched the planet in past lifetimes, and it starts recording where you are in this lifetime, which is what I call deja vu.
Okay. This is what we were talking about last night, Rob, with Philip.
Right. Yeah, I
deja
talked
vu.
about a little bit about deja
Okay.
vu. So how
Go ahead, Rob.
did you learn? Yeah, how did you learn to open and
Yeah.
read the records?
From a wonderful, wonderful teacher in Miami, Laura Lynn Baum. But what happened in the very beginning is a friend invited me to lunch, and when I got there, she was beaming. And I said, "Sharon, are you pregnant? I've never seen you look." And she was like, her son was 17 at the time. She said, "Oh my goodness, please don't say that." But anyhow, she said, I had just come from a weekend of learning the Akashic Records. And at the time, I didn't even know what that meant. When she explained it to me, I'm like, oh, I know what that is. I just never heard of that terminology. But immediately, I mean, I was tingly all over. I felt, oh my goodness, this is something I need to know. This is something for me. And we were getting ready to take a 3-week trip together to the Oregon woods, to Sundance, actually. And I said, oh my goodness, I should find a class so that I could learn and we could practice that whole 3 weeks together. Mm-hmm. So luckily I found a class that week, that next weekend. We only had 1 weekend before we left. And there was a class in Loxahatchee, which is 20 minutes from me. And I'm like, look at this. So her husband and I went to that class. I talked her husband into it because he was going on the trip too. He was a dancer in the Sundance that year, and we were going to support him. So anyhow, I went to that. In order to take that first class, you needed to have an Akashic record because the teacher really wanted you to feel the energy of the Akashic records before you took the class. And so but she didn't have time to give me a reading. I contacted the woman that had taught Sharon in Tampa. We did a reading. over the phone, and some of my first questions, was this for me? Was this for me to learn? And the teacher just blew me away. She said, she was silent for a long time, and then she said, the records are saying that you're already signed up for class.
That's weird.
I'm like, okay, now I'm really hooked. She knows me, she doesn't know, we've never spoken before. She didn't know I was taking that class. And that was it. And that first class, I was hooked, and I just wanted to keep learning more and more. And so Sharon and I found a teacher in Miami that taught advanced, and she ended up teaching us to become teachers. So that was a year-long program. And I've been hooked. I mean, from day one, I was hooked, and it's just made such an incredible impact on my life that I want everyone to have access to this.
Did you, do you have to ask permission before you can open somebody's records?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
there are no peepers out there.
No. And in fact, in order to gain entry into the Akashic Records, you need to, and this is how I was taught, and this is how I still teach, is that you need to have a sacred prayer. They know your heart. You can't be used for ill gain. You can't go in there to, like, if people wanted information on a war or they're not going to gain entry.
Interesting.
This is about light and love and spirit. It's to advance you on a soul level, to help you in this lifetime, to help you maybe in future lifetimes on your journey.
Well, do you regularly access your own records?
I do.
You do.
So
What do you learn?
Well, I'm going to tell you, what I do typically now is I just like being in the energy of the record. So if I'm going to be home for a few hours, I'll just open the records and be in the energy, not necessarily asking a bunch of questions. And I can get the answers, like, okay, so it can be something as big as my next step in my profession, which the records have helped me many, many times. Is this my next correct step? Am I headed in the right direction? Because I want to do what's my soul is calling for, right? And it can be as simple as this. One time, I'm in a different business at the time, and my business partner picked me up, and we had a gig in Miami. So we're on our way down there. Well, my water stopped working in my house. It had been like a less pressure the day before, but when I get up in the morning, there's no water coming out, and I have to get ready to go to Miami. So in the car, I knew he was driving. I could access my own records and say, hey, what do I need to do here? I had called a friend who owned apartment buildings, and she said, oh, you're going to have to call leak finders, but they're so expensive. Before you call them, call your home insurance and see if they'll pay for leak finders. I'm like, what? So like, I'm making these steps, and it was covered by my home insurance, but the bad news is my deductible was so high that it wouldn't be advantageous for me to do that. And I get into the car with Dan, and I go into the records. I said, I got to check on this. And they said, call Jupiter Water Company.
God, it's very specific.
Never thought of that. So I called them in the car. They said, oh yeah, okay, we'll be there in an hour. I'm like, great, I'm headed to Miami. It was a pipe on their end that was fixed in 2 hours for no cost. So
interesting.
So it could be something crazy big or something like every day, right?
Yeah, so you can tune in right in for information related to just your everyday awareness and things going on in your life.
Yeah. Because the brain gets in the way sometimes, right? And if we're not in our heart, look at me. I'm going through all these gyrations for something so simple. And of course, my male business partner at the time says, you didn't call Jupiter Water Company? I'm like, no.
So, is there a visual aspect to this of what you see the Akashic Records look like? Is there some?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So like, I visualize the Akashic Records as the library, law of Congress, where there's all like a huge building with all these books inside, like you're in a huge library, kind of my visual.
Yeah.
When I'm in the Akashic Records and I'm getting information, I don't know why, but this has been since day one. I always picture the masters and teachers of the Akash as little monks sitting around a round table.
Oh,
And they are hilarious. They will dress up sometimes. They will, there'll be a cheerleader. They'll be cheering, yay, she finally got it. So, and when I read for others, the same thing, you know? So that's just my visual.
yeah.
Darlis,
Well,
we had a guy on last year. I'm gonna tell about Wes Meeks.
right. Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob. You know him better than I do.
So he's an out-of-body traveler, and he's had these experiences since he was a kid. And so he had heard about the Akashic record, didn't know much about it, but wanted to go there in an out-of-body experience. So he left and went soaring off. And at first he was just enjoying like soaring through the cosmos. And then he focused again to where he wanted to go. And it's like he moved into another dimension where he came upon this huge, huge mansion. That was the way he received it, like an enormous mansion. And each person has a room in that mansion where he said there's no furniture in there. The only thing in these rooms, it's about the size of a hotel room, is a huge vase, a very beautiful vase. It can be, he thought some were like granite, some were like jade, and different materials, and with intricate designs on. And that's, where each person's records is stored. Have you ever heard anything like that?
Well, it's interesting that comes up. Like when I take people into meditation, sometimes I will take them, okay, so like from the room that we're in now, then out of the room, we're on the planet, we're out of, we're in Florida, then we're in the United States, and keep going up that whole lane, right? And when we get to the atmosphere, I feel, and in my meditation, in my guided meditation, I take people to the angelic realm, to to all these different realms. And one of the realms on that elevator, so to speak, is the Akash. And we step out of our Merkaba and we go into the Akash, and it is when I think about it, it's like the Taj Mahal. And when you go in the elevator, there's a receptionist and she greets you, and she's a light being, and she says, what would you like to learn today? Would you like to go into the room of yoga? Would you like to go into a room of planetary development? You can go into any classroom and learn anything through the Akash in these different rooms. So I've done that with groups of people, and it's really interesting, like where they went and what they learned. And so that's similar.
Well, Wes ended up having sex in the hall.
Okay.
in the mansion.
Yeah, he met a guide, an older woman, and who attractive woman, older than him. And she said that, well, she is she looks that way because she wants to present herself as a wise being, but she said she's actually younger. She's actually his age. And then changed her image. And so I don't know why you brought that up, Trish, but
it's just weird,
but yeah, but it's like a floating experience they had, and there was other people also doing the same thing.
Okay. So I think the advantage that I have, like in doing that meditation, I am in my own Akashic records before I start that meditation, because that brings up a good point. Now I have don't get me wrong, I have lots of friends that are psychics and mediums and do many, many different, modalities of this spiritual world that we're involved in. But one thing that I've always appreciated about the Akashic records is that I have this solid record. I have the solid prayer that I'm reciting, and I've always asked them from day one. My my knowledge base that I'm actually in the records is that my whole world gets very bright. When we open the Akashic Records with a prayer, we always keep our eyes open. And so we're aware, we're not really out of our body. There's part of us that might be out of our body, but it's really about staying present, especially when you're reading for someone else and that you're just gathering information. Sometimes we do see visuals, but getting back to this part about what was just mentioned is, I know without a doubt that I am in the Akashic Records. When you are psychic and you're gathering information, I'm not positive where that information's coming from. And I feel safe. I guess that's the word. I feel really safe that I'm getting pure information from the Akashic realm. And I feel like I know where it's coming from. If I'm in Trish's records, yes, I always, so people call me from all over the world and ask me to do an Akashic record reading. But to this day, before I open their records, I would say, Trish, do I have permission to go into your Akashic records? Okay, that's part of the process. And that's how I teach students to do it also.
The sacred,
it's a sacred
thing.
The
sacred prayer that you mentioned, is that like a protection as well for you? Or is that not necessary?
I've never really felt that I needed protection. It's my direct line into the records. And to this day, even today, so preparing for something like this, I go in my records. Is there anything, masters and teachers, that are important for me to present today? Please let me be in the energy of what you want to have come forward today.
Okay. Yeah. Are many people interested in their past, learning about their past lives through
they are. It's almost like that was what has been prominent of what people associate with Akashic Records, right? Yeah. But it's so much more than that also. And past lives really, so when I read for someone, I ask them to bring 5 questions to the table for the Akash, and they ask them one at a time once we're in their records. And a lot of times their past life isn't in there, but sometimes the records want to divulge one of their past lives because it has something to do with a question they ask. And they want them to have that knowledge base. Knowledge is power. It's like, once I know something that I've lived that I have since forgotten, right? Because we were all brought in and fast asleep. When I remember that past experience, I can so relate it. When they bring up something, it's a past life, it's because it really is associated with what's going on today, and it'll explain so much. I was once a counselor, a therapist for many years. And I had this couple that were very religious. And one of the things that I did at the end of my counseling, after learning Akashic Records, I never did a counseling session without being in the records. So I asked their permission and they said no. I'm like, okay. And
did they know what it was?
No, and that was part of the problem. And people that are maybe really involved in religion have a fear about it. And once I explained more, but it was in the heat of the moment, they were really having a lot of problems, and I'd gone there, not really giving them a lot of background about Akashic Records, but I was a blank. I was so spoiled of always using this tool that is like, I just felt like I had nothing, right?
Wow.
So finally I said, listen, I am so terribly sorry, but I'm really struggling here with giving you a good session. Do you mind if I go into my own records? Because that is my spiritual direction. And and let me tell you, it's all about God. It's all about spirit. This is nothing, it's no woo-woo. It's unusual for you and you don't know about it. So they gave me permission. So I went I was at their home. I went into their den. I opened my own records, got centered, came back out. And when I came back out, they had this picture of them. They had gotten off the wall from upstairs, and it was a picture of both of them put together when they were age 6, and they looked like they were twins.
Jeez.
And the record said it's because they were
Wow,
twins in
that
a
is
a
interesting.
prior life. And some of the experiences they had in that lifetime was causing them to butt heads in this lifetime.
Huh.
So
Hmm.
the session went amazingly well because we had other information.
Right.
Yeah.
So when a past life comes up, then it usually is not just something out of curiosity so much, but something that could be connected to your present life that you can learn from.
That
Hmm.
is how it's almost 100% of my experience. And I've been at this for 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
Has been a past life being brought forward is for you to learn about it and how it relates to this life.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
It's informational. Yeah.
When you do this, does it fill you with energy, or does it deplete your personal energy?
It fills me with
Yeah,
energy.
okay.
And trust me, I've done lots of things and lots of different careers that have depleted me. And this is energizing.
How long does it?
And you know why? Because I was meant to do this.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
This is what I
Yeah.
was meant to do.
Right.
it
How
sounds
long
like.
does it take you to enter the Akashic Records?
Minutes.
Minutes. Okay.
So I have a sacred prayer.
Mm-hmm.
I ask permission to go in their records. I read the prayer once out loud and then twice silently using their full name because it's based on the energy signature of your full name.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the records will open while I'm reading the first prayer the first time or the second time. And by the third, and I formally say, am I in their records? But I'm always given the signal. It can be a cloudy, rainy day and everything's brighter. All of a sudden, everything's brighter. And I know without a doubt that I'm in, but I formally ask, like if I was reading for Trish, am I in Trisha's records? And I will wait till I get a yes.
Well,
So mediums work with spirit guides, but this is a little different, right?
Yeah.
Or is it?
I think it's a different aspect, right?
Uh-huh.
of guides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it
Yeah.
sounds like.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, so, okay, you have my permission. But here's my question. What happens like when women get married and they take on their husband's last name? But so which name do you?
Right. They use the energetic signature of a name that you've been using for quite a while.
Oh, I see.
You know,
Okay.
and what I will do now, I got to tell you, the last couple of years, they become very, very formal and they love people's middle name.
Huh.
And if a person got married this year, I would write down, and I write it on a piece of paper and I hold it
Mhm.
in addition to saying their name, because I know there's a lot of energy in written word, as you guys know
Right.
really well, right?
Trish has a lot of names, though, because she's written novels under different names. So.
Yeah, that's why I was asking about
So-
the pseudonyms, you know.
Right. And so what I do is I write down all of them,
Wow.
all of
Wow.
them, right?
Yeah.
And I hold on to that. Now I can't say all of them, you know, if you have 10, you know,
Uh-huh.
I can't do that, but holding on to them is very powerful. In fact, the first time that I ever read, and then they'll decide what to use. And then sometimes they'll have me write down what they use.
Huh.
Okay. Like there's a woman that I read for on a fairly regular basis, you know, a couple times a year. And her email address is Grace. And I was always thinking that that was her middle name, but it's not. She doesn't have a middle name. But they started using it. They loved
That's
it.
interesting.
And they started using that. And when I opened her records, I used that as her middle name.
Huh.
Mhm.
And then there was a woman in Miami, and she had a connection to Mount Shasta. I take trips to retreats to Mount Shasta. She had an affinity for going there. She wanted to go there. And here her middle name was Aurelia, and Aurelia Louise Jones wrote some incredible books on Mount Shasta. They were channeled books. And I go to Mount Shasta Publishing. She left the business when she passed away to Victoria Lee, and I go there. I take my groups to Mount Shasta Publishing when I go. Well, she kept arguing with me. I don't use my middle name. Don't use my middle name. Now, I have no idea. I don't know her. She got a referral and called me, and I'm doing the reading. I had no idea that she wanted to go to Mount Shasta, right? But Aurelia, when she said that last name, all of a sudden, all this information from Mount Shasta was coming in.
Huh.
And in Mount Shasta, it's very common to see ships over Mount Shasta.
Mhm.
And I've only ever seen that ship shape in Mount Shasta. And I've traveled a good bit.
Hmm.
Well, that day it was a beautiful winter day. I'm doing the reading in the backyard, and here comes the ships.
What's it look like?
The clouds that are over Mount Shasta, those big round, they have a name for
Uh-huh.
them.
That's like
Elliptical or
no, it's like what Bruce lenticular.
Lenticular. There you go.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
So I had never saw those clouds in my backyard ever.
Mhm.
So I said to her, now I don't know, she's an older woman. I don't know if she believes in all that. Doesn't really matter. I have to say whatever the records bring forth. Okay. So I say to her, I'm seeing ships. And she said, oh, I don't know. I didn't know that you lived that close to the water. I'm like, oh, no, not that kind of ship. So now I have to explain myself, right?
Yeah.
Explain what they're giving me.
Did it
And
make sense to her?
I said, the only time I've ever seen them was in Mount Shasta. And she
Huh.
said, I've been wanting to go to Mount Shasta.
Oh, that's interesting.
So she went on my next trip.
Huh.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's interesting. Yeah.
Now you're also a dowser.
Yes.
So now explain. I always thought dowsers looked for water, but apparently
Yeah.
it's more than that.
Yeah. So I'm a sacred evolutionary dowser. I do dowsing energy. Okay. So this is what happened. I get sent to Belize, Central America to live. It was through a job, which I can't believe I'm going to take this job on. I don't want it. I fought it. I have Sharon do a reading. We became teachers together. And when there's an emotional hot point, I'll ask another reader to give me a read because I'm just too close to it. So I said, listen, these people keep bugging me to take this job. I don't want to take it. And why would I take it? So we go into the records, and my question is why would I take this job? And they said for spiritual growth.
Huh.
And I'm
In
like,
Belize?
that's cheating. You know that I'm all about spiritual growth.
What were you doing there in Belize?
I was running a substance abuse treatment center
Oh,
in
boy.
the jungle, the country's only treatment center where there's no support, there's no psychiatrist, I get there, and within 2 weeks, it was just crazy town. It was worse than I even expected. I got there, I had patients, I had no staff. The woman before me ran away, all the staff.
God.
I'm like, and where do I get them? Nobody's trained in that country. I have to get them from out of the country. It was really crazy. So I called Sharon on Skype and said, you got to give me another reading. What am I really doing here? This is crazy. And they said, you're there to clear the land.
Huh.
I'm like, what does that even mean? What? And they're like, the land is very dark and you're going to learn how to clean it.
Huh.
And I had no idea what they were talking about. And so some of my staff members were Belizean. The techs, the support system for the treatment center was from that country. And these young techs would come to me like a week later and say, listen, I can't come next Thursday. My uncle's going to has an exorcism.
Okay.
The first time I let it go, and then 2 weeks later, I get somebody else and I'm like, are these guys playing me? But I didn't think so. They're really young, sweet, innocent. And I'm like, okay, tell me about this exorcism. And they're like, like in the movies, the Catholic priest does it. And I'm like, what? Well, it turns out that there was a Catholic priest from Tampa, Florida. He had been there for 3 years, and that was his mainstay of doing out and out exorcisms.
Oh.
So I went to him and said, I don't know. I've been told that something's going on with the land, and I don't know what that means or how to absolve it. And he said, well, I can be there in 2 months. And I'm like, 2 months? No, we need your help now. Well, what it was is he was doing the research on what that land had gone through, who had owned it, what had happened on it before he came and did a full-blown exorcism on the land.
On the land.
So that was
your-
the beginning of figuring out and how to clear the land. Well, I had one of my counselors at the time was that I had gotten was a woman from Cuba that was also a shaman.
A Santeria.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so she helped, and the doctor is Buddhist, and we were chanting every night, trying to heal the land. You know, I'm going into the Akashic Records saying, you need to teach me more about this. You know, come on, we need to clear this up. And the exorcism worked, and we still had to continue to do some work. He gave Maria and I 150 metals to plant all around the ranch where this energy, so the energy could not come back in. I do something similar now, but I do it if I have a dark energy like that, but I'll do it with sacred sand that's made of crystal, containing either the really high energy in or protecting it from any energies coming back in. So he taught me a lot, and I stayed in contact with him, and things got better. And I got great staff and new clients, and we did a whole new program. And I'm still, the treatment center closed down, but I'm still in contact with a lot of former patients that really got a healing there. So that was,
so it was just the ranch that needed the healing.
Yeah. Well, so, okay. So what, to explain the treatment center is, the treatment center was on 26 acres inside an 80-acre water buffalo farm. It was a true working ranch. So when I say ranch, that's, yeah.
That's a lot of acres.
It was a lot of acres, we had like 200 head of water buffalo. We were right on the New River. It was quite the experience. And when I got home, then I formally, at the first Co-Creators Convergence, so that must have been 2013, there was a dowser there, an energetic dowser. And she took one look at me and said, we're going to work together. And I said, okay. So I taught her Akashic Records. She taught me dowsing.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So I started doing the dowsing in 2013, mainly for homes and businesses to shift the energy of what's going on, which also shifts the energy for the people that live in the building or work in the building, and pets. I do the pets also.
That was I had a question. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You just reminded me. Okay, do animals have Akashic Records?
They do. And
that's
some
so
people,
cool.
Yeah. And some people specialize in that work. I really haven't done any of that. You know, it's funny. It's like a lot of us have our little niches, right? So my people tend to come to me a lot of times for business purposes. Sharon was a nurse prior to her becoming a teacher. And so people go to her a lot for medical. And if somebody calls me for a really heavy issue medically, I will send them to Sharon, because that's been her forte. She, you know, I was taught the medical extra, you know, scanning the body. So if it's just something light, I'll do it. But if it's a heavy diagnosis and the person's really suffering, I'll send them to Sharon.
Well, what kind of information do these people who do pets, what do they pick up?
I don't know.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. But, you know, that is, you know, something I should delve into more. Like right now I have a friend in my meditation group that has got a sick dog. So
yeah, that'd be interesting.
I should do that. Thank you for that, Trish.
But how hard is that for you to learn? I mean, is it because it's a different?
I don't think it's got a learning curve really. It's just, okay. So the other thing about Akashic Records, sometimes it feels like cheating. I don't really have to do much, you know?
Yeah.
I go into the records before I'm about to do a reading and just make sure that I'm a clear vessel, that I stay out of the way. I might ask Edgar Casey to come in and be with me during the reading, because he's like the father of our time, the Akashic Records. I will ask if there's anybody important from the other side of the veil that should be present during this reading for this person, for them to come in. And then I go into the reading. So my main job is to stay out of the way, to
Right.
stay a clear vessel, to get their information and to say everything that I get. Because in the past, when you're new, you're like, oh, I don't want to say that, or that feels weird, right? And then the subject matter always comes up. It always comes up to bite you in the neck. It's why didn't I say that?
So do you get warnings sometimes for people to give to people that they might not
Like, don't fly on this plane on such and such a date?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never really gotten that.
Okay.
What I tend to get, like from the questions asked, if it's a yes or no subject, like they like open-ended questions. They like to delve deeper, but sometimes there is a yes or no question. Okay, so when I became like, when I was studying to become an interventionist, I was like, man, I better check in. Is this what I'm supposed to do? So I go in the records and they all dressed up in cheerleading outfits with pom-poms saying, yay, she finally got it. And I was an interventionist for 10 years. I had my own business for 8 very successfully. And I always use the Akashic Records. Now, I don't have permission to go in their records, right? But I would go into my own and say, what do I need to know about how to serve this family? And I would get incredible information that I would never otherwise get, which made me a super successful interventionist.
Now, what do you mean by interventionist? Explain what
I did. I intervened on people for mental health and substance abuse that really needed to go to a center for deeper healing. And my track record was amazing. Because I am in recovery. I'm getting ready to celebrate 33 years in a couple of weeks. And I had a passion for helping these people get the help that they needed. And I knew that it could change their lives. But having the Akashic Records, I would get information that would not be accessible otherwise. And I always entered the intervention meeting itself with the client in my own records, and I would fill the house with angels and ascended masters and please just let love prevail. And I always did interventions with love. I would have the family members with love letters.
Yeah. So you're providing guidance, which is in a sense, that's a warning. It's if you continue on this path,
that's true.
It's not going to be a good situation for you.
Right. Yeah. And so some people will call me, okay, for a marriage issue. Should I remain married? Is this, and they will give them usually, okay, X, Y, and Z, or 1 A, B, and C, 1, 2, 3. They don't really tend to give just one round. This is what this looks like if you continue in this marriage.
They give you, so there's, so it's like, here are the points of departure.
Right.
Yeah. And
because they also believe that the guru rests inside of you, that you have everything you need especially in your DNA from all your prior lifetimes to make that decision. So they're just guiding you. They're just helping you, and they have access, and they can give you information that you wouldn't otherwise have. They might tell you something about your marriage, like those twins. That was amazing.
Yeah, that is incredible.
And this is what you're up against. You're trying to relive some of that lifetime. You made a commitment to come back and work some things out. And once they have that information, then they can make different choices for themselves,
So do they ever provide, when you go into someone's records, do they ever provide information about their future, things that are coming up?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I tell you what's been coming up lately that you guys will probably love is a lot of galactic history and a lot of timeline information. Okay. What they have been, this has been coming up.
I mean, like with if this happens, this is going to happen, that type of timeline.
Well, or we can move timelines or change timelines. Okay. So like about 2 years ago, a lot of people were being held back from their ancestral line because we were going into such a high spiritual time in our lives and on this planet, that some of the things that people were delving into, like Akashic Records or
Right.
dowsing or any of this, or what you guys, write about, that it was scary because they've gotten their heads locked for stuff like that. They might have been in
Oh,
the
interesting.
1600s or
Right. Salem getting
and-
burned.
right,
Yeah.
right. And so they were like, they had this tightrope around, a rope around them, and they were like a tug of war and saying, no, 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 we gotten in trouble for this before.
Uh-huh.
And so ascended masters were coming in and having like a come to Jesus meeting with these ancestors and saying, listen, you either get on board with what's happening now and be supportive, or you can jump over to another timeline and leave this person do what they need to do and what they came here to do. And this one woman told me this story about, she went shopping and there was these very expensive scarves, and she's never been a scarf person. And she goes in and she buys this like $300 scarf or something.
Wow.
And she didn't know why. Well, they represented that is because she's been set free from them holding her back. And now she could wear them, this beautiful scarf,
Wow.
and show her ancestors that, see, I'm fine and I'm safe. And I appreciate all the experiences that you had. And I really appreciate your support going forward.
Okay, tell me, I mean, I hear this term a lot, ascended masters. Give me an
Mhm.
example. I mean, Christ, that would
Yeah.
be.
Yeah, we call him Sananda now in his afterlife. It could be
Buddha?
yeah, Buddha, yeah, any spiritual being that came before us. And we are all ascended masters. And my belief and doing the work that I've done for so long, it's the difference is they're all here supporting us. Like Saint Germain is a big one that comes in. Archangel Michael comes in a lot. Like he'll actually soothe over that timeline and
What do you
say,
mean?
listen, if you don't want to be cut out, I can use my sword and I can cut you off from this person.
Wow.
Or I can smooth out, I can use my sword to smooth it over like icing a cake.
Interesting.
And just smooth things over so that we could all be on the same team and you can support this person moving forward. Saint Germain comes in a lot, and I think that's my affinity to, he's really present in Mount Shasta, and he's actually come to me a couple of times and helped me on my journeys there. So that's a big one.
Now, okay, so how come he hasn't reincarnated?
Well,
Or has he? I mean,
I think he's on the planet right now. I don't think he would ever miss this party. No, we're getting to the good stuff now. And he's lived a lot of lives, and he really loves United States in particular. He spent a lot of time in Europe. He's reincarnated so much. He was, so some of his past lives, he was Shakespeare. He was Merlin.
oh, cool.
Yeah, so he's lived a lot
Okay,
of
so
stuff.
different.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
He was Christopher Columbus.
Really?
He's lived
Jeez.
all these different lives. Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So is it possible to tune into the Akashic record of a nation, of a country?
It is. And that's a really good point. Rob, I should be doing that more. It absolutely is.
I'm thinking about the Ukraine right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I could be doing that. Yeah.
And they'll let you see the records of a country.
Yep. Yep. Okay. So what happened is in 2013, it was the first Co-Creators Convergence that we had. And I don't know most of these people. And I ended up going because I wanted to meet Barbara Marks Hubbard was going to be there. And I had studied with her for many, many years, and I'd never met her in person. And so I was doing this 90 days of silence for 2 or 3 hours every morning. And so I was getting up on the ranch at 4:30 in the morning. We were at Sunrise Ranch in Colorado, which is where we always held it. And so I'm getting up and I'm going to the mountains so that I can be away from everyone and have my silence before the day started. And I go up to the mountain one morning and hear a troop full of people, including my dowsing teacher, Shelley, is coming up the mountain. I'm like, no, no, no. And I'm in my Akashic records. I'm like, no, no, no. I was supposed to be quiet. And they're like, how about if you offer them a group Akashic record reading? I'm like, these people don't even know me. And they're like, Darlis. I'm like, okay. So they get there, they don't know me. I said, look, I'm in my Akashic records. They said, how about if I do a group reading? I don't even know what that looks like. So I just had them state their names out loud. I opened everybody's record and it was really, really powerful. And when we finished and I closed, as we were walking down to breakfast, I get from the records, you're to open the records for the whole group.
Oh,
I'm like, oh man.
that's
come
quite an
on.
assignment.
And what was happening is that we were on day number 2 and there was a little bit of a division. People were there for creating what the new earth looked like based on Barbara Marx Hubbard work of the evolution of co-creation and the wheel of co-creation. And somebody brought up, well, what about the corporations? We need to redo the corporations. And people, there was another fraction that said, oh, we shouldn't be dealing with corporations at all. They're all evil, blah, 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 blah. And there got to be 2 fractions. Well, it ends up that I was supposed to do the Akashic records and it brought everybody back to center. And it was beautiful to watch, but it was like, I don't even know how to do this. I had to give the people that arranged I had to ask for the registration list of all the names and hold the names to open that whole big group's records. And it was the first time that I did that. And now I do a lot of groups and I love that.
So with this group, what was the source? I mean, they'd obviously been together before in some other group, right?
Not really. This was really the first time we were meeting in person because Barbara was doing so much at that time online.
Okay.
And that we were scattered all over the country and out of the country. And that's why that's why that whole thing was started, so that we could actually meet and spend time in person together. So yeah, most of us only knew each other from taking different classes online. So
Darlis, you mentioned Edgar Casey, and he spoke of the
I think he was the first psychic, wasn't he, who mentioned?
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Were there people talking about the Akashic records before him?
Yeah, Akashic records go back to Sanskrit time.
Okay.
They're ancient. They're in every ancient text. I went to India, so their ancient text, the Gita. Yeah. Akashic records is all through that, and it's named by name. But yet nobody.
It is.
Yeah,
it's named.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't access them. It's like part of their. It's almost like the Bible. It's like. It's just kind of held in that esteem. So I was invited to speak in India at this huge conference, the Women's Economic Forum. It was 6,000 people from all over, from 105 countries. And I'm talking about the Akashic records, and people were like amazed that I taught it, that I did readings for everybody. So they actually wanted me to come back and teach, but it didn't work out. But people really aren't teaching people how to access their own. It's like this holy text.
So the ordinary guy can't do it. That was right.
And we can, and it's important to do that.
In that group, did you do 6,000 people?
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna.
What? It was such a strange thing. Okay, so it's the International Women's Economic Forum, and I didn't even know why they were asking me to come. That's not my. I was an interventionist at the time. I was already teaching Akashic records also, to kind of balance, the two works out, because intervention work is very heavy. But they had me speak on addiction. I spoke like 3 or 4 times. It was a 6-day conference. So I spoke on addiction, I spoke on Akashic records, and then they wanted me to speak about borders. I'm like,
about borders?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know nothing. And luckily there was a co-person, and what she had to bring about borders was excellent. And I was like, well, Akashic records teaches me there is no borders. We are all one, Right. But she had some experience in California, so she could really speak in a different way. Not the border, but
So what I was wondering, you teach classes, workshops on the Akashic Record. You teach people to learn to access their own, and also other people as well. Does it take a certain type of person, a type of talent? Do they have to have psychic abilities to do this, or is this something that's anybody can access?
anyone.
Really?
So I have a
Okay.
great story about that. So I have, I did a talk show, and this woman had called into the talk show, and then I ended up doing a reading for her. And then I had an upcoming class, and she wanted to do it. And she wanted her husband to do it also. But her husband's not really into all this, but she wanted him to join in. So I said, well, the first requisite is he has to have an Akashic record reading. So let me do a reading, and then I'll see, also people can't be coerced into taking this because they're really handsome too. That's not going to do anything, right? So he calls me and we do a reading, and the reading was so fantastic. Okay, so he is an earth mover. He drives one of those gigantic
Oh, wow.
earth movers. He works for a mine in Wyoming. And when I told him about the Akashic records being, in the cave and the,
Right.
oh my goodness, the reading was incredible. And he had wanted to change professions for a while. The reading, he gathered some information. He bought another business, got out of that business, and he had the really deep feeling and energy of not wanting to mess with Mother Earth and be like digging big holes into her and all of this. So I'm going to tell you, so he joins the class because he loved the reading, and now he's enthused about it. He was one of the best readers of that whole class. And it was a class of, I think, about 10 or 11. He was incredible. He got it. I mean, so it's for anybody that wants to, because guess what? We all have that intuitive energy. Right. Sometimes it just has to spark, right?
It's an equal opportunity.
Yeah.
It sure is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
I'm
So-
wondering,
Go ahead, Rob. I'm sorry.
yeah, I'm wondering if the Akashic record could be used for archaeology, if archaeologists could tune into records related
interesting
to
question.
something that they're looking into, dig in the
Yeah.
past. Yeah.
That's incredible. You guys have great ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should be using that. We could
I think it'd be
using that.
fantastic. Tell Indiana Jones that.
Right.
He needs a dowser or an Akashic record reader.
I've been hearing from a group of people who are archaeologists, one in particular in Europe, and they have an
Wow.
association. And I was thinking that the one I've been talking to most recently, he's in Malta working on a dig, and he's very
Wow.
interested in all of this, and he could probably benefit.
Yes. Yeah. So if he just learned how to open his own, then he
Yeah,
could be
right.
using it on the
Uh-huh.
dig.
Yeah.
It would be fantastic. Yeah. And then it's so funny because talk about synchronicities. I just met with a young man that I'm doing individual sessions with that really wants to grow in his spiritual work, right? He's young. And he was a musician, and he wants to become an archaeologist.
Oh, wow.
And I said,
The
well,
music of the earth.
I know. I said, listen, check into like doing some, maybe before you delve into another college fee for your parents. You already just finished one and now changed your mind. Maybe you should go on volunteer for a couple of digs first and see if this is a fit before you start another
Interesting.
4-year,
Right.
college.
Yeah.
Well, okay, if you open the records of the Ukraine, is there a way to soothe what's going on there?
Yeah. Well, what's coming up for me also is, okay, so I worked on Wuhan as a dowser.
Oh, wow.
So when my dowsing teacher came to me and said, we're going to work together, what ended up happening is I taught her, she taught me, but we use both in conjunction. I never do a dowsing without opening my Akashic records first, and neither does she. Okay. So what comes up for me is I could use both of my gifts for that. Okay. So what happened is in February of 2020, I have an energy worker from Mexico that I bring over to teach classes. I He does energy work. I don't even know how to describe Don, but he's pretty powerful. So anyhow, one of the members, she's from Wuhan. That's her hometown. She's lived here for many years, but her whole entire family was still living in Wuhan. So as a dowser, and she was talking to them every day, keeping abreast of what was going on. So as a dowser, I started gathering from her the history of Wuhan. Well, the history of Wuhan, and I do that for any dowsing, because I know that I want to find out the energy of what happened on that land so I can better serve it. So major wars, it seems like, from the north and the south to the east and the west, that was always the main place for the whole country's war. That's where the war games were taking place. I mean, and it had taken place for a long time. So she gave me a lot of information, and part of Dawn's class, we all went in there. There was some pretty powerful people in there that do a lot of different things. And we really went into Wuhan trying to calm the energy, to cleanse the energy, anything that we were guided that we could help with. So the same thing could be done to Ukraine and Russia right now. Let's calm everything down. We don't want anybody to suffer through this.
Well, I mean, what if there's a nuclear war, you know, with Putin threatening nukes and all this stuff? Okay, what can the guides in the Akashic Record do anything about that? Can they intervene, you know?
Well, what I've learned is that that's already been shut down. There's no way that will ever happen. That's the information that's come forth, is we are really done with war. And there's never going to be a nuclear holocaust. That we're done with that. And
there's no winner.
That really
there's no winner.
That comes really from more of the higher beings. You know, there's so many higher beings here now. And they've put things in place so that can never happen again, because we would destroy not only the earth, we would destroy this whole part of the universe. So that's the information that I've been, you know, given over the years.
Darlis, you need to write a book.
I know, I do.
Seriously.
I'm so excited to meet you guys, because they've given me some guidance.
Yeah, I mean, you really do, because the only stuff really that exists about the Akashic Record is Casey's stuff. You know,
I mean, not really. No.
Is there more? I mean,
oh yes. Okay. This is where that screen starts.
Okay. Yeah, I did see this book.
Okay.
That's
so
true.
So when I first started out, really the only one was written by somebody that was running ARC about Edgar Casey. Yeah, that was the only book we had when we started. But Edgar Laszlo,
I like his book. Yeah, he's good.
And what's been so nice for me is that he writes, some of his books are more scientific. So when I have men coming to class, they bring a different energy. They bring more of a scientific mind to everything, which is wonderful, because we need both sides of the brain, right? So I would send them to books like that. Well, read Edgar Laszlo's stuff, because he can explain it in a different way, and it's really helped.
Yeah.
And you know, he was really good friends with Edgar Mitchell, who happened to live in our area. Yep. So my daughter, actually, for a time she was doing estate sales, and she got the estate sale of not Edgar Casey, of Edgar Mitchell.
Interesting.
And so I got to go there a couple of times, and friends were visiting that were part of the co-creation Convergence, and we all went over there. He was really good friends and had every book on the Akashic Records. Yeah.
Well, and before we get away from that, Darlis, can you hold the book back up? Just say and say what the title is for the audio listeners and who wrote it.
Yeah, see, this is where my green screen doesn't work so well. Okay, so here's two great books. Yeah, here's two great books. The Akashic Experience, and that's by Erwin Laszlo. Yep. And then Dawn of the Akashic Age, which I adore. And that's also by Erwin Laszlo and Kingsley Dennis. And what it talks about is that we are coming in, we are at the dawn. The Aquarius age is the dawn of Akash, where everybody can be using this to its fullest potential. So it's really wonderful. We're living in that age now. You know, quantum resonance, all of that. I mean, that's more everyday languaging now than we've ever experienced.
That's true.
before.
Right. Yeah, that was the last question I had for you. We're coming to the end of our hour. Is
No, I want to talk to her more. I could talk for another 3 hours. This is great stuff.
But if I was wanting to, if you could expand on that, the sense of the shift that's going on. I mean, on the everyday basis, everyday world, it seems like there's a lot of chaos and discontent and two sides of everything. But is there something more going on, something deeper that's resonating with people?
Yeah. I think this is the greatest time we're lucky to be alive at this time. And that's what I love about the Akash. I mean, people have called me these last 2 years frightened or worried about family members. And the Akash has really said, hey, hey, hey. So the message is right now from the Akashic Records, it seems to be a thread through almost every reading I do. And I do, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 a week. It's always different. Is relax. Stop it. Yeah. Put those shoulders down. I have people calling me and I do the same thing. What is my next? I've been doing this for a while. I got a couple years ago, you're going to be on a new path. Well, what is that? And they won't give that. They're like,
the book. I'm telling you.
Yeah. And that's what my astrologist says too, because I was supposed to go to Mexico for my birthday. I didn't in February.
John, what happened? It stopped. Uh-oh.
Trish, are you there?
Yeah.
We're me and said, did you go to Mexico for you to write your book?
Oh, really? To go? What happened here?
Yeah, Darlis is frozen.
Yeah.
Internet is unstable. Sorry, that's me. It's got it says it's okay.
Yep.
Do you see me now?
You're back.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, if we could back up to that. Yeah.
When you first mentioned Mexico.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to go to Mexico for my birthday. And because my astrologist said it would be better for me to go west, and there was a light workers conference down there, and my friend Dawn lives in that town, Puerto Viagra, and I was supposed to go there for my birthday, and it wasn't a time to travel at the beginning of February, so I didn't go. And she said, well, since you didn't go, it's your year to go inward and write that book you've been talking about for so long. So you're right in tune with that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You should do it. Yeah.
Yep.
And there's certainly space for it.
That's for sure.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, this is fascinating. I feel like I've visited something.
So how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah. The best way is my phone. I take text still. I'll give you my phone number is 561-339-2614.
And your website?
And my website is heavensrecords.info.
Okay. All
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. This is
I've got to send this to Paula. She's the one who recommended you because she'd had a reading with you. She's going to love this.
Great. And
So
I thank
so
you guys.
much.
It's great to connect with you guys, and I will be contacting you when I start to write.
Okay.
Right, okay.
That's
Okay.
great.
That's good.
All right. Can't wait.
Wonderful to connect. Thank you so
And
much.
we'll send you the link when it goes up.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks
you.
again, Darlis.
All right.
Take care.
Bye now.
Bye.